Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 17 of Ryan and Anna on MIA. And we've had further improvements and transformations here. Thank you, Ryan.
I'm always upgrading, it's fun. It's like my sort of thing is always be constantly improving.
All things
Always.
like the city of Miami, which
Absolutely.
is why we're living rent free in their heads. There have been quite a few articles lately, sort of using anecdotal evidence and kind of light on data that are trying to cast aspersions upon the hashtag Long Miami narrative. I keep saying them. And I'll say it once again, haters are fans too. We are living rent free in their heads. Why? Because we're taking their taxpayers. There's a few recently. There was one in the Real Deal saying hashtag Long Miami. How long can it last? And there's some not much data in that article. Again, just some anecdotal points, things about climate change, things about affordability issues. And when was New York City ever affordable? And when did it ever have great schools that didn't cost a fortune in the city of Manhattan, especially? And then there was a Yahoo article, Yahoo Business, about Paradise Lost. It had a picture of the Miami skyline, but the article itself never mentioned Miami.
Oh my word. That one really got me because it was about prices going down and things getting canceled. And the Miami was like
The
the
picture.
the header, but there was no mention
No.
of Miami in the actual story.
Yeah, there was no mention of Miami in the story, and there was no data about Miami in the story. And in fact, in the month of March this year, our single family home market hit an all time high median price point for Miami-Dade County at 650,000. That's an all time high. It is up over 17% year over year. And the condo market is at 420, which is tied for the highest ever price. We hit 420 once before, I believe it was last August, and we're up 7% year over year for the condo market. Meanwhile, inventory, while it's off of the lows, especially the condo market, it is still far below pre-COVID realities. So we're a tighter market than we ever have been. So where's the data to support Paradise Lost?
And speaking of data, you were recently an article about $1 million gets you in the building.
Oh, yes. That was an article that I contributed to in the South Florida Business Journal. Brian Bendel wrote it. He's a wonderful journalist. We've done lots of work over the years. And it was a look at what's coming in the pipeline in the Tri County area. And I have this database of all the projects, their beginning price points, the unit sizes, all those things. And of all the projects in South Florida, there are very, very few that have any price point below $1 million. And the few that do are at something like 750,000. And below that is almost non-existent unless we start looking at short-term rental projects in the Miami core because zoning allows for it. But even then, there's not many. That's
Yeah.
it. It's basically, and Palm Beach County has none.
So what you were saying is that there's no normal projects in the pipeline,
Correct.
like
Correct.
normal.
Right. 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 When we start looking at price points below 700,000, it's basically studios or short-term rental projects.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, but I mean, it's interesting. I appreciate what the press does, but it's like they're always looking for the negative. They're always looking for, if it bleeds, it leads, sort of
Exactly
thing.
right.
But at that same time, something that I've noticed recently is, well, not that I was reading a tweet about someone was talking about how the housing market had peaked out and the bubble had popped, and they were somewhere else. I don't know where, like somewhere else. And it just really hit me that, oh wow, Miami is such a bubble. I'm not talking about a real estate bubble as in like prices. It's just its own thing,
Its own world.
its own world. Like the rest of the country peaked out like months or maybe a year ago, and like it started to decline, and things are not going as well. Here in Miami, it's like its own little like I don't know.
It's part of that pattern of the country polarizing, which is something I've been talking about for a while. We're in that era of the empire of polarization, of wealth gap, belief systems, all of that. And I believe we're going to have increasingly incompatible realities coexisting across our country. And it's just part of that polarization process.
Yeah,
So it's just
it
all you have to do is look at electoral maps,
yeah.
how much the country's polarized.
And I mean, but for me, it was like the realities are so different.
Right, exactly.
And for him, he was talking about something about he sold his house at the top of the last bubble, and I'm like, aren't we still in it? And then I realized, oh, he's not here.
He's not here.
He's somewhere else.
Yep.
And that to me was just like a real sort of like, wow.
Yep.
So
Correct. And one more, there is the Wall Street Journal again, which really seems to try to create negative Miami narratives, like that Brookings Institute that they had completely misconstrued last year that I talked about, where they implied that Miami had somehow lost all this population and no one else had, when in reality we had we had an uptick after peak COVID. New York and LA did not. The Wall Street Journal had an article talking about trouble in our office market.
Yes.
And the premise of this statement is that was the fact that the building, which building was it? I'm blanking right now.
One Brickell City Center.
One Brickell City Center can't find an anchor tenant. They're not done yet. I think they have 2 years to go.
Well, the building that's there isn't even demolished.
Yes.
It's like still there. So there's like at least 4 or 5 years.
Oh, yeah, exactly. More than 2. And so they picked this one little thing. Meanwhile, we have all this positive data in our office market, such as that 830 Brickell is 100% leased and expected to get their TCO shortly. And they, of course, they have Citadel in there. They have Microsoft in there.
Yeah.
And the lease prices would have been records any other time. And then we have 2600 Biscayne, which is 50% leased before it even broke ground. All these great things happening. And our office vacancy is half that of New York.
Yeah. And then also there's a ton of projects that are in progress, that are still in progress. There's the one in the design district that is that our friend is doing.
Oh, yes.
Yes. It's like a Japanese architect.
That's right. That's right.
I can't, sorry. I can't.
Now?
Yeah, I'm like Mirari or something with an M. It's going to be a pretty cool, it's going to be like a star architect project.
Right.
And then you have the one that's going to replace the gas station by Northeast 36, which is like a 40-story Class A office. You have 2600 Biscayne. What else is happening around there? There's just like, there's so much happening. And just because One Brickell City Center cannot find an anchor tenant, like it doesn't mean it.
No, nor are they in a time crunch.
Yeah.
Maybe they're just still looking for somebody really good. I don't know what's going on there, but this is not a disaster.
Yeah.
Nor is it any indicator of overall office market health. And that was it. That was their point.
Yeah. There was no like deeper thing about it. It was just that. It was that One Brickell City Center cannot find an anchor tenant yet. That was the entire
the building doesn't exist yet.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I don't even think, I mean, it took 830 Brickell a long time to get their anchors.
It's a big deal. An anchor tenant's a big deal.
Yeah.
And they have time.
Yeah, they have time. So
anyway, that was their point. So I expect to see more of these articles coming out.
Yeah.
Because we shall see. Remember, 1% of the top 1% of taxpayers account for 45% of tax revenue in high tax jurisdiction. So their departure accelerated budget gaps, all sorts of issues. So I get it. And also people are resistant to change. It's a thing.
Yeah. And I don't know where it was, but I saw a story last week or a couple weeks ago about a $1 office buildings transfer.
I forgot where.
Chicago or LA or something.
Basically take it. It's your problem now. It's
Yeah.
like when they're trying to get rid of houses in Detroit and they can't get rid of them for $5. It's the same thing. Take them. Can you hold it?
I don't know if I mentioned this last podcast, but there was one in LA that was a older office building, and they are going to turn it into EV charging stations.
That's a better use for it, I suppose.
But it was just interesting because the building was so worthless. It was better to use it as EV charging than it was the office.
Fantastic. Yeah, California's New York, I think, could save itself, but California, I don't think so. I think they're so far gone.
Well, speaking of California, did you see their results of their elections they had in San Francisco?
Yes, they went more moderate.
Yeah, which is insane
for San Francisco.
For San Francisco,
correct.
And I've always said this for the past 5 years is that San Francisco was going to have to figuratively burn to the ground, before it changed.
Right.
I think it's finally gotten to that point.
I hope so. It's a beautiful place. It should be a great place to live.
Yeah, and it's like, I hope that, like the Macy's Union Square closing, the Westfield Mall. That's that I saw. The Westfield Mall has 85 closed stores, which it's San Francisco's largest mall. There's 85 closed stores. But anyways, what I'm saying is all of those things is figuratively burning to the ground.
Correct.
And I hope this election result really helps push them in the right direction.
Correct. I think they had some measures in there, such as welfare recipients taking drug tests.
Yeah.
That people call draconian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
it's a step.
Yeah. Also, speaking on our side of things, there's some exciting transit news. The Northeast Corridor got recommended for federal dollars to move it along. And just so you know, the Northeast Corridor is from Miami Central in downtown Miami all the way up to Aventura. And that's the Brightline tracks, obviously. And right now there are stations in Miami Central and Aventura. That's where we have stations. What they want to run is a local service that has stops in Wynwood, the Design District, Little Haiti, 151, and Aventura.
Wow.
but like a local service,
Right.
and cheaper.
Right.
Tri-Rail was the assumed provider of this, but it would, because right now from Miami Central to Aventura is about, I think, like $10-15. Tri-Rail would be like 4 or 5.
Like a real, yeah,
Like a
local
regular
commuter.
local commuter. But it's a big deal that they got the sort of recommendation from the feds because the county and the state already have the other matching funds.
It's fantastic.
It is.
We're getting transit, everyone.
Well, we're,
Somewhat.
we're working on it, but it's good that, because I think, one of the things that has been our problem in Miami-Dade as far as transit goes is we always have sort of let perfect be the enemy of good.
Right.
It's like, okay, we want to do this amazing thing, but there's not the political willpower or money to do it, so we're just not going to do anything at all. Northeast Corridor is low-hanging fruit because the tracks are already there. 2 of the stations are already there. So now you just have to build like 4 or 5 like infill stations that are just stations, nothing fancy. So low-hanging fruit. And in this day and age, that still costs $500 million.
At least you're getting it done.
Yeah.
Fantastic. The region is filling in.
Yeah. So that's good. Speaking of infill, last week I did a video tour of Edgewater.
That's right.
With my Ray-Ban glasses.
His James Bond spy glasses.
Yeah. And it went over well. People really liked it.
That's awesome.
I just scootered around Edgewater and sort of just like shot the different developments and the plots of land. That to me, it was very interesting because I know it and I read the stories every day, and obviously I'm a nerd about it, so I really like focus on it. But just going there and seeing it and feeling it was a very interesting experience to see it and to see everything that was happening, because there's so much.
There's so much.
There was like probably 30 or 40 projects from Northeast 19th, 17th Street to Northeast 36th Street.
How about that for their long Miami headline? Let's compare how much construction there's going on in Miami versus New York City. Just raw numbers, let alone on a per capita basis.
Yeah, just how many projects.
It's a hugely optimistic indicator.
Yeah, and like I've always said this many times, but the fact that Miami still has so much raw land in the urban core is wild.
Yep, 100%. It's like Monopoly. You see it. All these little pieces of land that have 1-floor shopping centers or parking garages, whatever they are, laundromats.
Yeah.
They could all be towers.
I know.
Just crazy.
Yeah. And that's
lots of them.
Yeah. And, I think of it, especially like where I live in the Arts and Entertainment District, which is sort of across the street from here. And I live in a building that's sort of like surrounded by like 1-story things. Like in every direction, there's just like 1 or 2 stories.
It's built like this outpost.
Yeah. Just like canvas is like just in the middle of like, in the middle of like a field. But I look at it, I love my view. So, I don't want it to go away, but it's just wild to see that. And then you have the Metro Mover right there. It's 1 block south of Canvas. So, and that means you can use the county transit zoning. So it's just crazy that there's so much space that you can build.
It's early days. Except Brickell. Brickell's built out more.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Brickell, there's like a lot happening in Brickell. There is 1428. They got a loan recently, I think. They got a mortgage. They got a mortgage for 1428 and also their historic properties because it's YTech, right? That's how you say it? YTech?
Yeah. YTech, yes.
YTech. They own the chateau with the new restaurant there in Brickell, and then they own the historic manor that's also 1428 sales center. So they got like a mortgage for all of that, but that's good. Also across the street, Santander is redeveloping their headquarters, that ugly tan building. That's going to be a thing. 2 blocks north, you have the Dolce & Gabbana residences.
Right.
2 blocks west, you have the Cipriani. And then you also have whatever I can't pronounce it, the one that Casatua is doing.
Right.
Like all right there.
Right. Yep. And the Domus is breaking ground in April.
Yes.
Kind of exciting.
Yeah. Which Domus is that? Okay, where's that?
I never know where I am. It's in Brickell.
I think it's West Brickell, right?
Yes. I forget addresses. I don't drive. I never know where I am.
And speaking of West Brickell, One Southside Park got a makeover.
Oh.
And is now the Mercedes-Benz residences.
That's right. And the sales are
which is wild.
They're doing great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's being handled by Sir Hant, which recently moved down here.
Yeah. I just love that. It just cracks me up that like Mercedes-Benz is like, oh, we see project in progress. We're just we'll just brand it because everyone else is branding
Everyone else
this
is.
car. Everything is there's one in North Bay Village that's
The
Pagriani.
yeah.
And I was just like, huh? What? The joke I mean on Twitter is like, we're gonna see like the Kia and Chevy
I mean,
towers.
it's Mercedes.
Yeah.
Car, but Mercedes isn't exactly like a Bentley.
Yeah. Oh, and my OCD was kind of like a little bit like, huh? Because it's called Mercedes-Benz Places
What is?
with an S, but like that's its name.
Okay.
It's called Mercedes-Benz Places.
What does that mean even?
Well, I mean, it's like
Places?
a place, like
Oh,
a place.
so they're gonna build more of them, I guess.
Yes, there's one in Dubai or something, but it's just funny because like it's called Places, like, but it's like a building, so it's like a place, not a places.
This was a marketing initiative.
I know,
And they were like, it's brilliant. This is what we'll do.
But like, you could have called it Mercedes-Benz Place, not
Right.
Places.
Places, I see.
I'm like, is there? Anyways,
They have 2 towers in the project, maybe.
my OCD was like,
No, by all accounts, I spoke to somebody from Sirhan yesterday, and by all accounts, sales are going really well. They said they sold out all their studios. They sold 100 units in like 2 weeks.
wow.
Yep.
Oh, and there's like 800 units
Right,
in that building.
It's 2 towers.
Okay.
So it's not 800. They told me it was like almost 700 between the 2
Okay.
towers.
Oh, because some of their hotels.
Right. So the first they're selling the first tower. The second tower will have the hotel component, but they haven't decided yet what the brand will be or what it will be. So
Okay.
they're selling the first tower. And the first tower they sold 100 units.
Nice. In a very short amount of time.
Correct. All the studios are gone.
Of
50 of
course.
them. Yeah. And the studios were somewhere in the 500,000.
It's not terrible.
Right. But back to the point. That's it. That's all that exists, and anything below $1 million is small.
Studios.
Yeah. And then he said the 1-bedrooms and the 1-bedroom dens were selling next. And they believe it's just because of the price point, because there's nothing in the pipeline at that price point.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It always cracks me up because I'll be on Instagram and I'll flip through. I don't know. They always get the real estate things because we're friends and I send you all the memes. And I get a ton of the realtors doing like house tours and they're always in like Texas, like, somewhere down by the southern border, like middle freaking nowhere. And like the thing will be like, look what you get in Texas for like $500,000. And it's like
a castle.
It's like a 4-bedroom castle with like a lagoon in the back. And the first thought that always comes to my head is like, okay, so you have to drive 50 minutes to get to Walmart.
To Walmart.
Like that's always the first thought that comes into my head.
Surprise, you're at Walmart.
And like you're just surrounded, and like the border is like right there. It's like in your backyard. It's like what? Anyways, I just cracked up. I watched them out of like and then on the other side. So this is interesting. I have the ones that's showing me in Texas with the mega mansions, and then on the other side, I see these New York apartment tours that's like the size of this room.
And they're like $2.3 million.
Yeah, $2.3 million. And I'm like, okay, so Miami is not that bad.
Yeah, exactly. I asked them how big the studios were at the Mercedes-Benz building, and they told me something like 550 square feet. And I went, oh, big.
Yeah.
It's like, you're from New York, right? I'm like, yes, that's a big studio. He's like, everyone else is like, oh, it's small. And I'm like, that's fantastic.
Well, I think you have to remember in Miami that in the last boom in 2008 and stuff, the apartments they built were huge.
Right.
Huge.
Right.
I've lived in a couple of those like Great Financial Crisis era buildings. Massive.
Yep.
They're like a 1-bedroom with den is like 1,300 square feet.
Yep.
And now we're on the other end.
Plus den is like 800 square feet.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah.
Well, it costs much more to build now per square foot.
Hmm.
It is what it is. They can't deliver below 1,000 a square foot. So if the studios are in the 500,000s, that makes sense. They're 500 some square feet because you can't deliver below 1,000 a square foot.
Like you were saying, $1 million gets you in the building.
Yes, exactly right. Exactly right. For less, you get a studio.
Yeah. You also were presenting last night, right?
Yes, I spoke last night at City National Bank at their bank building in downtown, and it was a Master Brokers Forum event. Now it's been 3 years in a row, which is like a market forecast. And it was a great event. It was kind of an update on what's been happening in our market. Their audience is the highest, the best performing, I guess, brokers in South Florida. So it was a real focus on how we have this tale of 2 markets, which I've been talking about, and how I led with how we're living rent free in the heads of all these publications, and then I had some updated charts showing the performance of various price sectors. One thing I do is isolate for price per square foot. because when you isolate for higher prices per square foot, past 1,000, past 2,000, you're really drilling down to new inventory at prime location. And that's where we see the biggest disparity in performance in this post-COVID versus pre-COVID reality. So despite the overall market having fewer sales, which, and remember, the plurality of transactions are at lower price points. The higher things past 1,000 a square foot are 500-600% higher than pre-COVID. And actually, in the month of March, January through February of this year, we've had more sales of 1,000 plus higher single family homes than any other start of the year on record. It was the highest. And the same thing for homes past 5 million.
Wow.
Family. And single family, that in that context, is actually outperforming the condo market in terms of relative strength versus pre-COVID, hitting those all-time highs for 1,000, past 1,000 square foot. Going back to what I've been saying is that you can't add more inventory vertically for single family.
Yeah.
So single family prime location is locking in land value as the region continues to grow.
Yeah. You have another engagement coming up soon, don't you?
Yeah, a few actually. I'm doing one in Brickell in April, beginning of April, about dynamics specific to the Brickell market. And then I'm going to have one at some point, I think towards the middle or end of April. It was rescheduled. That's going to be also a market update. That one is going to be at 5 Park in Miami Beach with Russell Galbett, David Martin, Jonathan Miller, who does the Elman reports. I talk to him sometimes. So, and one other person if I don't know. So that should be fun.
Cool. Awesome. I wanted to go through some of the interesting stories. This one is for you. Buyer is from the next Miami. This one says buyer in contract for Miami's most expensive home ever at 120 million at the Shore Club.
Right.
120 million.
Yeah. Condo.
Yeah, and just so you know, the previous record was in Miami. It was with Ken Griffin, who bought $60 million for 2 penthouses at Faena.
Never lived in them, by the way.
Oh no, you just sold them?
Yeah, so he purchased them pre-construction, and that was the record then at Faena.
Yeah,
and he never moved into those condos.
Does he still own them?
They were for sale. I think they may have sold.
Okay.
He was trying to sell them for a while. Ken Griffin just has this thing, it seems, for buying the most expensive property in whichever city he likes to set foot in. He did it in Chicago, in New York, and here, of course, in Palm Beach. He owns that mega sort of estate that he's been adding to. And so Faena, he purchased pre-construction, and word is that he walked in and didn't like the view and didn't want to live there and just never lived in it.
Must be nice.
I know. I mean, and then relatively speaking, though, it is not anywhere close to being his most expensive real estate purchase.
Okay. Because he bought Adrienne Arsh's former home.
Yep. And in Chicago, he has some colossally expensive properties also. And so 60 million for him I'm not sure if it's in his top 5 of property purchases.
Wow.
Yeah.
Speaking of Ken Griffin, he just recently announced that he's going to be starting work on developing his Brickell land. The one that he bought from Florida East Coast Realty.
Yep.
But yeah, he's going to do it, and it's going to have a luxury hotel at the top. Designed by the same people who did the design for Florida East Coast Realty, but a different design. Right. Because remember, it used to be like the Twin Towers, but now they're going to do like a luxury hotel at the top. Yeah.
Fun.
Yeah, it's going to be good. I think Ken Griffin is really a positive add.
Hugely positive add
to Miami.
Ken Griffin tends to be very active in whichever city he lives in. Yeah. He was in Chicago. I think that he will be here. Yeah. It's a good thing.
Also, speaking of news, remember we said we are going to get the Kia Tower?
Uh-huh.
I was only like halfway joking.
Right, yeah.
So
the Toyota Tower, what's happening?
So do you know where the Staples is here on Biscayne? No. Okay. It's sort of like by Paramount Bay. Anyways, so last week, a company bought the Staples, and they're going to put a Kia dealer there across the street from Brahman.
Okay.
Which is interesting. But they did say that they are going to build a residential component. So it's gonna.
Oh my goodness!
So it might actually be
the Ryan just manifested
the Kia Tower.
Remember, people, what you say has power. Your words create your reality, and Ryan has created the Kia Tower. I'll make you think better next time, Ryan.
I was like, wow. I had said this like back then they were doing like the whatever car Bentley thing. I was like, oh, what's next? Kia Tower. However, I am excited because I do drive a Kia. I drive the Kia EV6, and the only Kia dealers thus far are like out in Doral and down in South like way South State. Those are the options for me right now.
Right.
So I'm excited to have something that I can walk to.
Right.
Because I do need maintenance sometimes. So. But I was entertained. He did say
That's
that
hilarious.
it's zoned for 36 stories, so they'll put some sort of
Kia
say no.
Tower.
Yeah, Kia
That's
Tower.
fantastic.
And then also another interesting story from next Miami is the World Center, where the arena used to be, the old arena, like by the Brightline station. They got approved their waivers. They're going to have 2,350 units in 3 towers on that site. That's a massive site, and that is a huge. So you guys know World Center sort of backs up to Brightline. But right now there's like sort of a gap between Brightline and World Center because it's like a giant piece of land. So this project is very integral because it will connect Miami Central to Miami World Center, which will be great. I am excited about that. And also, speaking of my World Center, the Apple Store is now official.
Okay.
It's almost done with construction, which is hilarious, but it's now official. It's going to be in World Square, and apparently it will open next year.
Fantastic.
So, and then also,
stuff coming.
Yeah, the Museum of Ice Cream is also opening.
We have to go.
We do have to
I
go.
love ice cream.
Oh, also, we need to go. I was telling Rose about this. We need to go by my house. There's this new thing called battle carts.
Oh,
and
it sounds like fun.
It's like in real life Mario Kart. And you're in like little go-kart-y things, but they have like a screen on them and they have like power-ups.
Oh my God, that's so cool.
And you can like, I guess, slow your friends down or like
have to do this.
Yeah, it's literally like right here. It's like across the street.
Francesca too. It'll be fun.
Yeah, and it's like black light and all that. So I walk by it every day. Also interesting, the new hotel at MIA is in permitting. They're going to demolish, I guess, the old one, and they're going to build a very nice looking modern Westin at MIA.
Very cool.
I have some interesting thoughts about that. It has had some problems recently, infrastructure wise. The SkyTrain is down. You for flying, so you probably know. Yeah, the elevators and escalators are having problems. And as you know, this year is an election year. So it's like I'm getting interested to see what happens because I think Daniela might have some problems because I've been telling people this, like, listen, Miami-Dade and Miami have always had problems with infrastructure. We just do. Part of the charm of living here. But normally the things that are broken are behind the scenes. Right. There's like a sewer problem or whatever. Something's happening. But what's happened recently, this year specifically, and last year, is that the very visible stuff has broken. And that is not good because that's what people see and that's what they remember. So like the escalators, the Metro Mover, Metro Rail elevators, like things like that are broken. The SkyTrain at MIA, that's a problem because that's what people remember. It leaves an impression, and people remember that when they go to the voting box. So it's not looking good for Daniela, unfortunately. And I don't know what that means as far as what we'll get. And I think she's very nice. I have nothing against her, but the way she's allowed the narrative to sort of spiral on these issues is just not good. To recap, it's like I just don't know what that means for her in this election.
Right. Yeah.
And it's like I said, she's nice and I she's done some good things, but when you have visible stuff broken, it creates a narrative that's really hard to fix.
People can use it against you, obviously.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think, and people already are sort of using it against her. So
hopefully it gets fixed.
I hope so. Like I hope she can pull it out. I think there's going to be a lot more happening this year as well. Lots of projects popping off. My next tour that I'm doing with my glasses is going to be like My World Center in Park West.
Okay.
So I'm excited about that.
That is fun.
And we will at some point launch our new venture.
Thing that's coming.
Yes.
I apologize for the delay. I had a rather challenging start to the year. I didn't basically sleep for 2 months. That's okay. But we're better now. I was in Albuquerque last week. And
she looks very refreshed and relaxed.
I had a very interesting real estate exploration there. We went to Bandelier National Park and they have these cliff residences. And I had to climb these high ladders and all these things and get into these cliffside abodes that these Native Americans occupied until the 1550s. And it was really interesting to see how people lived.
Wow. Yeah, I loved your condo tour of the cliffside residence.
Yes. I mean, that was the pad back in the day.
Great views, but the access is a little tricky.
Right. Or safety. Take out your enemies. You see them coming, just throw rocks at them and they can't climb up. Sniper station. I don't know. It's part of my thing also. I always think I'm an optimist about the trajectory of humanity. And I think that you have to be, because if you're not, you're going to put yourself in a losing position. If you're an optimist, you can align yourself with the upward trajectory. And there always is one.
Yes.
People always negative doomsday stuff. Would you choose to live 500 years ago?
No.
I would not. I wouldn't choose to live 50 years ago or 100 years ago. There's no other. When was it better?
Yeah.
And people decided this. So walking through ancient cave dwellings, I think, helps one to gain perspective.
Yes. Well, guys, thank you so much for listening and watching. And we'll look forward to seeing you guys in 2 weeks. And I can't wait to launch our thing.
Great things ahead, everyone.
Thanks, guys.